Distinguished guests, we will now start the opening session. I have the honor to introduce Associate Professor Nguyen Tung, President of Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, to make the opening speech of the conference. Mr. President, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. So allow me to speak in Vietnamese. Mr. Moderator, distinguished guests, dear scholars, dear colleagues, on behalf of the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, I would like to warmly welcome you all to the 8th South China Sea International Conference with the theme of Cooperation for Regional Security and Development, co-organized by the Vietnam Lawyers Association, the Foundation for East Sea Studies, and the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam. As you all know, this is the 8th international conference, which is also themed on the cooperation for regional security and development. And this is the consistent topic of the international conference. So we take this as a consistent topic because now within the context of regional and international rising challenges, and according to the scholars, we still have the arguments of like two polar situations, and one opinion is that after the Cold War period in Asia Pacific, many think that conflicts are something unimaginable. However, to the other end of the spectrum of opinions, many believe that this is the area mature for race, especially among superpowers or powers. And it seems that the region, our region here, is somewhere among the two ends of the spectrum. So Southeast Asia, South China Sea, actually is somewhere between the two ends of conflict and peace. And that's why the topic is chosen for the past 8 years now for the international conference. And you all know that at this 8th international conference, we have more than 130 Vietnamese scholars and more than 70 representatives from the international community and diplomatic missions in Vietnam. And this shows the attraction of this international conference. And I wish to take this occasion to thank you all for your great cooperation and your interest in this conference. And your support is very valuable to the Vietnam Lawyers Association, the Foundation for East Sea Studies, and especially the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam. Over the past years, the SCS International Conference has become a prestigious forum, and from the number of more than 50 Vietnamese and international scholars in the first conference, now we have got the network of more than 300 scholars who usually discuss and exchange views on SCS. And in this conference, we have participants from more than 30 countries and areas from the Southeast Asia, Northeast Asia, East Asia, and Europe, and Australia, and North America, and especially for the first time, a participant from Latin America, which is a great encouragement for us. And over the years, we have got more than 200 interventions and articles, and including this conference, we will have more than 230 articles, which will be a great source for input for policy making, and many of which have been crystallized into recommendations for policies, which will be, of course, integrated into the policy of regional countries. The full presence of you all and this international conference shows your increasing interest in the South China Sea. And this annual conference is also a very good and precious occasion where we can share the most updated research on SES, and also a time where we can exchange and express our views over SES issues. And from our observation over the past year, we haven't seen any cooling off sign of conflicts, because there have still been encounters and efforts to change the status quo. And over the past year, there have been nearly 20 encounters among fishing or law enforcement vessels, especially in the Spratleys and Paracel archipelagos, and that is not to include the encounters between US and Chinese aircrafts in the region, and that is not to include the island building and reclamation, as well as the militarization of the island. And at the same time, the marine ecology is worsening. More than 20 coral reefs in the area have shown serious damage, and besides many others which have been completely destroyed. Over the past year, we have seen a very critical test to the role of international tribunal and the commitment to the rule of law. In July this year, we had the ruling of the PCA in the Philippine case against the China, and different reactions or responses to the ruling have shown the complexity of opinions, especially the interference of individual interest and the pressure of different calculations here. And there have been views where ASEAN cannot reach agreement upon the ruling in the case, and this shows the division among ASEAN member countries, and this may show or hinder the loss of centrality of ASEAN in the region. We have been used to the idea that ASEAN plays a central role in the region. However, there is another flow of opinions that ASEAN is still playing a silent but changing opinion on SES, and therefore, in that context, this international conference will provide a very great space and place for you all to discuss and suggest your observations and proposals. And from the observation of the past year, it is not hard to see that different countries have different views and interpretation of international laws, or as well as the scope of obligations and rights, as well as the prospect of freedom of navigation, of aviation, and the possibility of ecological recovery in the region. And from now on, we still can see more elements that may increase the complexity of the area here, including the transfer of power or restructuring of power in other countries. And the developments over the year have shown that the situation is getting more complicated in SES, and that requires a very careful analysis so as to have proper, close, and reflective understanding of the issues. And I also wish to get your attention to the point that we need to double our effort, because we still see many more surprising or potentially surprising elements from the result of the recent presidential election in the US. And I do hope that in this international conference, our devoted scientists and researchers will have very in-depth discussion on the different processes and developments in the SES. And from that, you can help us in the region and the international community to understand more properly and fully the issues in SES. And from that, we can have a very strong scientific foundation to make relevant policy recommendations to stakeholders or countries in the region. And I also wish to draw your attention to one mechanism that we started to have last year. That is the mechanism for SES Young Leaders Group, which can contain consists of the young researchers in SES. And you can also see that yesterday in the dinner we reserved one dinner for members of the young leaders group. And with this mechanism, we do hope to have a continuity among young and experienced scholars, because we have very young and scholars who have full energy and fresh views, and now we can have a very good combination if they work with you experienced researchers. So over the past 8 years now, we will continue to work so that our international conference on SES will become a even more prestigious conference in the region. And I do look forward to your very fruitful and effective discussions over today and tomorrow, so as to work out solutions to the conflicts or obstacles in SES issues. And before finishing my speech, I would like to speak on behalf of Vietnam's Lawyers Association, the Foundation for East Studies, and the AV, to thank the People's Committee and Party of Thanh Hoa Province, a very beautiful city here, for making this conference a reality in this very beautiful and nice and hospitable city. And I would like to invite Mr. Quang, the Secretary of Thanh Hoa Provincial Committee, to make his speech, please.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first off, on behalf of the party's government and people of Thanh Hoa Province, I would like to extend my warmest welcome and appreciation to all the delegates, distinguished guests and scholars for spending your precious time to attend the 8th South China Sea International Conference on the theme South China Sea Cooperation for Regional Security and Development, held at the hospital city of Nha Trang. I am grateful to the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, the Foundation of East Sea Study, and Vietnamese Lawyers Association for your coordination of a large-scale conference with the participation of the prestigious experts and scholars to discuss a topic of great significance to regional peace, stability, and prosperity. It's a great honor and pleasure for Thanh Hoa Province and Nha Trang City to receive all the distinguished guests and delegates with all our heart and mind heading toward the South China Sea. Ladies and gentlemen, with 385-kilometer long coastal line, 4 large bay and many advantages brought by the nature, Thanh Hoa is the place with many international known tourist scenery. Nha Trang Bay is among the 29 bays and listed as a member of the Club of the World's Most Beautiful Bays in 2003 and has been classified as a national scenic attraction. Its beauty has long been praised by the local people as well as international friends. With a diverse maritime ecology and large seafood reserve, Thanh Hoa is also the province that has one of the earliest fishery industry in East Asia. The total seafood reserve of the province is estimated to be about 150,000 tons a year, and the exploitation capacity about 40 to 50,000 tons a year. There are about 600 types of seafood being identified by scientists to locate in Thanh Hoa Maritime Zone, among which there are about 50 species with high economic value. The local fishermen have not only exploited adjacent fishing route but also conduct fishing in the offshore water surrounding the island and islets in the past thousands of years. Thanh Hoa is also the widely known as the place that has seaport with the best nature condition in Southeast Asia. During the Cold War, Cam Ranh Bay is a high concentration place of East-West conflict, which were hired by the USA and the Soviet Union to serve as the military base. After the end of the Cold War, with the open door and integration policy by the government, Cam Ranh had changed in its face to become one of a venue for peace and both the seaport and service center. So on March 2016, Thanh Hoa officially launched Cam Ranh International Port, which The length of trough exceeding 2,140 meters, the port can receive 18 ships at the same time and 185 ships annually. Within the first 8 months of operation, the port had received 9 visits from and conduct repair service for warships from many countries, including China, the US, Japan, Australia, and India. So from a military and strategic outpost, Cam Ranh has become a symbol of integration, economic and trade development, and serve as an important gateway connecting Vietnam and the world. With its strategic location, Khánh Hòa is a locality that has important role in the nation building and protection. Following the policy of multilateralization and diversification of ties and integration promulgated by the party and the state, Khánh Hòa has proactively opened its doors and integrate and becoming a pioneer on maritime economic development and an important center for integration and cultural exchange in the central southern coastal area of Vietnam and the whole East Asian region. Distinguished guests, Vietnam is a country that has undergone many large-scale war and heavy losses and lingering pains in its cause toward preserving our national independence, sovereignty, and integrity. We are aware of the destruction of war, and on that basis have strived toward preserving peace and friendship and stability in the region. So Khánh Hòa people had lived and died with the sea and desired for a peaceful, secure, and fair sea zone. However, the reality showed that South China Sea had become a maritime zone whereby competition overshadowed cooperation. Power politics become more popular, and international law is not respected as place and at time. So researchers have proved that the most effective tool for conflict preservation is not trade ties and economic interdependence among nations, but trust among the relevant countries. Once trust, the basic glue binding peoples together, is eroding, so it will be harder to manage conflict. The heightened tension in the South China Sea recently has eroded trust among the regional countries. As a foremost coastal province, Khánh Hòa is always the first place that suffers from negative impact of vulnerable development in the South China Sea. In the past decade, tension in the South China Sea have created many concerns that directly affect the investment and tourism environment of our province, as well as the livelihood of Khánh Hòa fishermen. While respecting national interests, particularly the preservation of peace, stability, and friendly cooperation with neighboring countries, Khánh Hòa leadership also places a priority on our province socio-economic development and create favorable conditions for our local people to live and improve their livelihoods. Ladies and gentlemen, more than ever, the current situation in the South China Sea at the moment is posing an urgent need for a long-term solution for this regional dispute, as well as the mechanism to maintain and the order and rule of law at sea. So in the South China Sea, there's not only the issues of peace and stability, but also those issues that relate to right and obligation of nation. And this is directly related to the development of our Khánh Hòa. So from that understanding, we warmly welcome the 8th South Chinese Conference, a prestigious forum that provides analysis and explanation for analyzing the reality and prediction of the situation in the South China Sea. As the province which has the honor to receive distinguished guests, we look forward to receive your interest and proactive, straightforward, and responsible discussion at the conference. On this occasion, we would also like to express our hope that the scholar and expert will spend more time to conduct research and suggest measures to enhance cooperation among South Chinese coastal community, particularly in those areas of maritime tourism, safety measures for fishermen, measures for sustainable development and conservation of natural resources. Proposing measures to protect maritime environment is a no less important task. as it is vital for the development and prosperity of not only ours but also the future generation, and not only for regional sea zone but also the public zone that belong to the whole mankind. There is one saying: if you want to go fast, go alone; if you want to go far, go together. I strongly believe that with the open-minded spirit of researcher, with the passion and eagerness of those who are interested in the South China Sea issue, we will work together toward achieving the solution for the South China Sea, so that 50 or 100 years or many years later, our children will continue to enjoy the beautiful scenery here. Distinguished guests and scholars, once again, on behalf of the party, government and people of Khánh Hòa, I wish you health, success and happiness. I wish you efficient working day and unforgettable, memorable during the time of November at the scenic coastal city of Nha Trang. Thank you very much.